Roadwork is important, necessary, and unavoidable in any road network. New roads must be built. Existing roads have to be maintained. Sometimes roads are duplicated or upgraded. New bridges and flyovers are built, and a wide variety of traffic management improvements take place. In most cases, the roadwork has to take place in or close to moving traffic. Even when a new road is built through rice paddies and is able to be constructed free of traffic, it must eventually join to an existing road at each end. Unless very carefully managed, roadwork sites can lead to increased risk for those using the roads, as well as the road workers. Road safety at roadworks is an important but often neglected part of road construction and maintenance in Indonesia. The safe management of its roadwork sites is an important responsibility for any road authority. In Indonesia until now, a roadwork site has been characterized as a place with possible hidden surprises. Uneven road surfaces, few warning signs, and little guidance for the road users. It is time to improve this situation. Road safety at roadwork sites in Indonesia can be improved, and at little cost. All it takes is dedication to safety by all responsible for the project: the contractor, the client, and the consultant. It also needs some clear thinking by engineers and the knowledge about what to do. This DVD and the accompanying manuals will give you that knowledge. Putting it to good use at roadwork sites in Indonesia is now your task. Roadwork safety is the name given to the provision of signs, barriers, delineation, and other physical safety devices to ensure that the risk to road users and road workers at a roadwork site is as low as practical. Providing road safety at a roadwork site should be a high priority element of every road construction project or road maintenance activity. From the time the planning process begins until the time the project construction is complete. Traffic management at roadwork sites therefore often requires higher standards of safety than on the remainder of the road network. For example, lane closures, lane narrowing, sharp curves, and other abrupt or frequent geometric changes must be appropriately designed in terms of speed, advanced warning, and delineation to provide road users with clear warnings and guidance. The signs and devices used at roadwork sites are a vital form of communication to the road user. Without a rational and consistent system of signage at roadwork sites, safety of the workers and travelling public is compromised. The objectives of safe and effective worksite signing and traffic management are to provide a safe working environment for workers on the site, warn approaching road users and pedestrians of roadworks, guide the road users through, past, or around the roadwork sites safely, provide minimum inconvenience for the travelling public, provide minimum inconvenience to work at the roadwork site. Road crashes are due to three things: the human, the vehicle, or the road. Most people blame the human, the driver, the rider, the pedestrian, for all the crashes on the roads. Most people will say that the police should work harder to enforce the traffic rules, and in doing so the crashes will be reduced. Many road engineers also share this view. They underestimate the importance of their own work in reducing road crashes. Studies have shown that up to 30% of road crashes are due to the road and its interaction with the road user, the human. At roadwork sites, for instance, engineers may fail to realise that many of the human mistakes that are made by the drivers or riders are due to failings by an engineer. A warning sign was not installed where it was needed. The roadwork site simply happened, without the necessary traffic management plan in place. Road safety engineers can improve safety at roadwork sites by putting themselves in the shoes of the road users and by empathizing with their needs. An experienced road safety engineer will always ask the question, what will the road user make of this? An engineer who is concerned for road safety, as well as for the safety and well-being of the workers at the worksite, will then take steps to provide a worksite that is clearly signed, with strong delineation and clear speed restrictions. Engineers can make a difference. Engineers can save lives and prevent injuries. You can use the advice contained in this DVD and accompanying manual at low cost to influence the design, construction, maintenance, and operation of safer roadwork sites. Engineers have a vital role to play in providing safer roads for all Indonesians. Supervisors and workers have the following responsibilities. Supervisors should be aware of their responsibility to provide safe and convenient travelling conditions for the public and safe working conditions for personnel under their control. Establish the position of safety officer to care for all occupational health and safety, as well as road safety matters during the roadwork. This is especially important for long-term roadwork projects. Ensure that all personnel involved in the traffic signing and traffic control are aware of what is needed and of their responsibilities. Provide training for all personnel involved in traffic signing control. Inform other road stakeholders, in particular the local Directorate General of Land Transport and the Traffic Police of the roadwork. Inform the road users about the roadwork. For long-term work, information about the duration of the roadwork should be provided so that the road user can anticipate the effect of the roadworks. If there will be congestion, they may wish to choose a different route. Manage the site to avoid damage to private property. Be familiar with the provisions of this DVD and manual and act accordingly. Workers should take responsibility for their own safety by looking out for danger and being observant. Take care of the safety of other personnel and visitors to the worksite. Wear the protective clothing that is provided for their safety. Engage only in work practices that do not put himself or herself or any other person at risk. Follow the instructions of their employer in carrying out the requirements of this DVD and the accompanying manual. There are three categories of roadworks: long-term works, short-term stationary works, short-term mobile works. Each of these three categories of roadwork should be suitably signposted in accordance with general principles governing proper signposting. This means that they must give drivers and riders proper and gradual advanced warning of the changes to the traffic conditions and ensure that vehicles pass through the roadwork safely. The signposting must provide warning of the type and shape of obstruction and how to proceed so that drivers and riders can pass safely through or past the works area. In addition, signposting must be consistent and comprehensible and common to all roadworks along the road. The three different categories of roadworks usually require different types and amounts of traffic management. For this reason, planning the staging of the roadworks well in advance and designing a suitable and safe traffic management plan are two of the most important steps you can take in road safety at roadwork sites. The 5 phases of managing a roadwork site are: planning phase, design phase, implementation phase, operation and maintenance phase, closeout phase. Each of these phases has a clearly different and important role to play in your roadworks. Planning ahead for safety at your worksite is always time well spent. It is a positive and necessary part of roadwork. There are some key steps along the way, and by carefully considering each one, you can design, implement, and manage a safe worksite. The contractor should start by designating an engineer as the responsible individual for roadwork safety at the worksite. That engineer should be responsible for preparing a traffic management plan, a plan that shows the exact signs, delineators, cones, barriers, and other traffic control devices to be used for each stage of the works. Developing a traffic management plan takes knowledge and experience. Each site needs careful and detailed attention because no 2 work sites are the same. Despite the need to remember the uniqueness of your worksite, there are many common factors which reoccur on most roadwork sites. By following a series of key steps, you can gather together all the necessary information you need to develop a safe and effective TMP. Step 1. Decide the category of your roadwork. Roadworks are divided into 3 categories: long-term works, stationary short-term works, mobile short-term works. Step 2. Establish the staging of your works. Begin by asking in which of the following ways the traffic at your roadwork site will be managed. Movement through the work area under closely controlled conditions. Movement past the work area by means of a delineated path alongside but clear of the work area. Movement around the work area by a detour, which may be via a side track or an existing road. Closure of the road for short periods while the work is carried out. Decisions about the staging of the roadworks are fundamental to road safety. The staging of the roadworks will have a large impact on the road safety at the roadwork. The engineers responsible for the roadwork safety should communicate with the project manager and ascertain the staging of the works. This is a critical matter. Depending on the staging of the works, the preparation of the traffic management plan can either be a simple task or it can be a very complex task. Step 3. Consider the class of road, plus the volume and composition of the traffic. The road safety of road users and road workers will be enhanced by ensuring that the roadwork site is managed in such a way as to cause the minimum amount of inconvenience to traffic movements. You may need to consider how your works can be arranged to minimize disruption of established traffic movements and patterns, interference with traffic at peak periods, interference with public transport services, and the amount of road closed to traffic at any one time. You can minimize delays by maintaining open as many lanes as practical. You may minimize delays by having most work carried out at night. You may also be able to make use of portable traffic signals or well-trained traffic controllers in order to control the traffic movements as efficiently as possible. Step 4. Consider where the traffic will go. Traffic will continue to use the road, and so clear decisions need to be made about just where the traffic is to be directed: through the work area, past the work area, or around the work area. Traffic passing through a work area should only be permitted where both the traffic and the work can be adequately controlled. Traffic controllers are usually required to slow or stop the traffic for short periods to allow the safe movement of machinery or for other operations. Traffic past the work area. If a detour or sidetrack is not possible, the normal method for traffic management is to have the traffic travel past the work area. Traffic paths past the work area are to be clearly delineated to ensure the road users do not become confused and to minimise the risk that some may inadvertently enter the worksite. Traffic around the work area. When it is not practicable to allow traffic through or past the work area, a detour is needed. Such a detour may involve using some of the existing road network, or it may involve a specifically constructed sidetrack. Step 5. Consider the safety of road workers. Ask yourself the following questions related to worker safety. Is my work long-term or short-term? Worker safety at short-term works can be achieved by work methods that do not expose the workers to long periods of time working close to passing vehicles. Safety measures such as high visibility clothing, warning devices on work vehicles, and other workers acting as lookout personnel can be suitable for these types of work. If these types of controls are not suitable for any reason, then more substantial controls are to be adopted. How will workers be protected from traffic at the roadwork site? If your work is to be long-term, will it be through strong delineation and very low speeds, or by providing a barrier between the work area and the moving traffic? Or, if such a barrier is not practicable, will safety be assisted by providing an adequate lateral clearance between the edge of the work area and the nearest traffic lane? How will the speed of traffic past the site be controlled? By either temporary speed zoning and police enforcement, or other means, including road humps and appropriate signs and delineating devices. Step 6. Consider how best to provide for pedestrians and bicyclists. Where pedestrians, including people with disabilities, have to move through, past, or around a work area, or to cross the road within a work site, they should be provided with and directed to suitably constructed and protected temporary footpaths and crossing points. Pedestrians and bicycle paths should be provided on the same scale and to the same width as any facilities for pedestrians or bicycle traffic that was existing prior to the works. Where footpaths or crossings for pedestrians have been temporarily relocated, the following requirements are recommended for the temporary facilities. The footpath surface must accommodate all users. The surface of the footpaths and/or the crossings should provide safely and conveniently for handcarts and wheelchairs, and for the visually impaired. Crossings should be placed in well-considered locations. Crossings should be located as near as practicable to the pedestrian's desire line, that is, where the pedestrians wish to cross. The crossings should be at the same standard of both width and surface smoothness as the crossings they replace. Pedestrians and vehicles must be kept separated. Where pedestrian traffic has been diverted onto an existing roadway, the pedestrian path should be separated from vehicular traffic. A mesh fence with no hazardous struts or hazardous poles, or a solid line of plastic cones or bollards may be used for this. The lighting conditions must not be reduced. Lighting should be no less than the level provided on the original footpath or crossing. A traffic management plan, or TMP, is a plan that shows clearly all of the signs, barriers, barricades, and other devices that are to be installed and maintained at the roadwork site for the duration of the works. If the work has a number of stages, there should be a TMP for each stage. A TMP should be prepared for all roadwork sites, short and long term. When preparing a TMP, start by looking at the large-scale issues and gradually work down towards the detailed items. The large-scale issues can be addressed in 3 steps. Step 1. Consider the risks at the worksite. The following are some hazards that could be encountered at a roadwork site and which need to be addressed in your TMP. Poor advanced site distance to the worksite. High-speed traffic through the worksite. High volume of traffic through worksite. Narrow pavement width with no escape route. Workers too close to the passing traffic. Presence of unshielded hazards. Excavation adjacent to traffic. Rough or unsealed road surface due to the roadworks. Loose material on the road surface. High volumes of heavy vehicles through the worksite. Work vehicles entering or leaving the worksite. Bicyclists or pedestrians moving through the worksite. When deciding how to manage risk and how to keep a safe roadwork site, you should consider the severity of the hazard or risk, the state of knowledge about the hazard or risk, the nature of the works, for example long-term or short-term works, the availability and practicality of possible hazard or risk control measures, the cost of removing or mitigating that hazard or risk. Step 2. Consider the risk control measures that could be used at your worksite. The following examples are practical options within each risk control measure. Risk elimination. Can the risk be eliminated? Divert the traffic away from the worksite. Install a sidetrack. Close the road for the duration of the works. Engineering controls. What engineering measures or protective devices can be implemented to minimize risk? Safety barriers, lane closures, reversible or contraflow traffic, portable traffic signals, crash attenuators, vehicle-mounted attenuators, escort or pilot vehicles, increased clearance to the worksite. Administrative personal protective equipment. What can be done to adjust the behaviour of traffic travelling through the worksite? Speed restrictions, signage, traffic cones and bollards, traffic controllers, delineation of the travel path, lead and or tail vehicles, a variable message sign or VMS, vehicle-mounted signs and devices, working at night if safer, high visibility clothing for all workers. In considering the risk control measures that could be used at your roadwork site, it should be recognised that there is often a need to satisfy competing objectives such as maximising the safety of workers and all road users, minimising the delays to traffic, managing the costs of the risk control measures so that they relate to the costs of the associated works. Step 3. Decide the risk control measures to be implemented. Having considered all risks, decide on the risk control measures you will apply in consultation with those who will be working on the worksite or supervising the works. You now come to the point of considering site-specific points of detail for your TMP. The arrangement of traffic control devices for each stage of the works. Arrangement and number of traffic controllers required for each stage of the works. Any job-specific requirements, for example, a nearby school, hospital, or access to shops. Provision for very large vehicles. Provision of safe passage for pedestrians, bicyclists, and people with disabilities. Impact on public transport. Potential for traffic to queue into conflict areas, for example, across an adjacent railway crossing. Provision for access to abutting properties. Duration and time for conducting the works, for example, day or night operation. Traffic management arrangement at the worksite outside normal working hours or when workers are not present at the site. Emergency contact details. Communication arrangements. A well-designed TMP will assist you to overcome the common problems at roadworks on Indonesian roads at present, such as placing advanced warning signs too close to the work area, using incorrect signs, applying inadequate taper lengths, and using unsafe delineators. There are too many surprises for road users at work sites in Indonesia at present. To ensure the traffic management plan is adequate and is implemented correctly, the project manager is expected to commission an audit of the TMP before and after it is implemented at the roadwork site. Firstly, a desktop or before audit of the TMP is carried out. Once the TMP is implemented, the site or after audit is carried out. This audit should be conducted both daytime and nighttime. Audits look at the traffic management arrangement from the road user's point of view. The audit team puts themselves in the shoes of the road users and should look for safety concerns. Signs that are missing, signs that are wrong, tapers that are too short, and items that are hazardous. Items to consider in the desktop road safety audit include traffic volume and approach speed. Higher speeds and higher volumes generally increase the risk at a site. Road geometry. Will this reduce site distance and increase the risk of surprises? Sign placement. Are all the signs located according to the zone concept? If signs and markings conflict with one another, they must be removed or corrected. Travel path. Is it clear where all the drivers and riders are to travel? Delineation. Clear and made from forgiving materials. Have lane widths been changed or altered to allow for changes in the environment? Is safety barrier needed? If so, is it clear how it will be installed? Will it have safe terminals and secure connections between units? Roadside hazards. Have these been removed or shielded? Worker safety. Will workers be trained in worksite safety, and will they all be required to wear high visibility vests? Is there an escape path for workers? Are pedestrians through or around the site being considered? Will all construction entry and exit points be safe? All the safety concerns detected in the desktop audit of the TMP are to be resolved by the project manager. Only after all are resolved can the work begin on setting up the roadwork signs and devices. Before any roadwork commences, all the signs and devices should be set out in accordance with the approved traffic management plan. This should be done in the following sequence: advance warning and regulatory signs in the approach warning zone, starting with the signs the greatest distance away from the work zone and working inwards towards the work zone. Signs in advance of the taper or near the start of the work area. All delineating devices required to form the taper, including illuminated flashing arrow signs at the end of the taper. All delineation of the work. All other required warning and regulatory signs, including termination zone signs and end of temporary speed zone signs. After your traffic management plan has been implemented, an audit should be undertaken to ensure that it is installed and operating as expected. This audit should take place before the roadwork commences on the site. If changes are found necessary, these should be made straight away. Common issues that you should look for during the audit inspection include signs that are located behind trees or obscured by structures, damaged and non-reflective signs or signs facing the wrong way, visible permanent signs that should be removed or covered during the roadworks, tapers that are too short, possibly because of horizontal or vertical geometry on the site, gravel, mud, sand on the pavement. Ensure the pavement is swept clean of sand and gravel. This is critical for motorcyclists and small vehicles. Exposed roadside hazards that require added delineation or possibly shielding with barrier. In urban areas especially, but also in some rural areas, check to ensure that appropriate signs and devices have been installed on all nearby roads, including side roads, that will be impacted by the roadwork. Tips for safer work sites. Do not set up any more signs than are necessary. More signs do not always equal a better sign scheme. The best schemes are when correct signs have been located conspicuously and are maintained well. Road users will respect well-signed schemes. Information, present via traffic signs, should not be given too far ahead of the work area. Drivers and riders will tend to forget or doubt the information provided. In the case of a very long roadwork site, the required information should be repeated at intervals of no more than 1,000 meters. Signs and devices should be regularly checked and maintained in a satisfactory condition. A daily inspection, with damaged or missing signs replaced within the hour, should be your minimum expectation. The contractor's team commences the roadwork on site when approved by the project manager. This is after the road safety audit findings have been discussed and signed off. Further surveillance inspections are to be conducted on a daily basis throughout the duration of the roadworks. Written records including dates, times, findings, and the engineers involved should be made and kept. The daily surveillance should check all of the signs and devices on the TMP. If signs are damaged, or if bollards are knocked over, these need to be recorded and rectified as a priority. Roadwork should not surprise a driver or rider. If we can achieve this, roadworks across Indonesia will be much safer for all. The closeout phase is the phase after the roadworks have ended and during which the traffic management arrangements that have existed need to be removed. The most critical safety issue to watch out during this phase is to make sure you do not take away necessary signs or delineation and leave hazards exposed. Removing the signs and devices at the conclusion of the work is best done in the reverse order to the setting out. First, remove all warning and regulatory signs in the termination zone, including termination and end of temporary speed zone signs. Then remove the delineation around the work area and termination zone. Remove all delineating devices in the taper, including any illuminated flashing arrow signs at the end of the taper. Remove the signs in advance of the taper or at the start of the work area. Finally, remove all remaining signs, including advance warning and regulatory signs, starting with the signs the closest to the work zone and working outwards from the work zone. There are two groups of customers on the worksite: road users and road workers. Both are humans. Both are important. Whether as road users or road workers, the customers of the traffic management plan are people. Some of the human factors to consider include: determine the expected speed of the traffic that will be passing through your worksite. Despite the speed limit that may apply, many drivers and riders travel faster than they should. At 100 kilometers an hour, a car is traveling at approximately 28 meters each second and can take over 200 meters to stop. It is essential for safety that advance warning signs be positioned at appropriate distances in advance of the work area. One of the common failings at roadwork sites in Indonesia is that the signs are placed too close to the work area. This is almost guaranteed to cause some surprises for some drivers or riders, and that is not good for safety. So ensure that signs are placed well in advance of the work area. Drivers and riders take time to react once they have noticed something in their path. This time can vary between 1 and 3 seconds, depending on how alert the driver or rider is. Not all drivers are the same. Allow for an average driver or rider reaction time of 2 seconds. Therefore, the length of advanced warning that is required in this manual allows for reaction time, as well as for stopping distance. Your roadwork signs must be conspicuous. The 2-second rule is the norm for all appropriate driver reaction time. However, in a location with poor visibility to the roadworks, the advance warning distance should be longer. Ensure that signs meet national standards and that they are located to suit driver and rider eye height. Drivers and riders need to be able to read a sign while driving, and therefore signs must be designed to be legible from a distance. Symbol-type signs have a much higher recognition rate than word-type signs and should be used wherever possible. Drivers and riders do not always expect the presence of roadwork sites. This lack of expectancy means they may be surprised when faced with a sudden change in the road situation without warning. Remember, there are to be no surprises at roadwork sites. Advanced warning of roadwork sites creates an expectancy of changed traffic arrangements so that drivers and riders can modify their driving and look for appropriate guidance. The advanced warning sign should be obvious, and the layout of the worksite management scheme should be clear and definite, allowing only one course of action for the driver. All signs used at roadwork sites must meet the requirements of the 6 C's. The 6 C's of good signage are: conspicuous, able to be seen; clear, able to be read; comprehensible, able to be understood; credible, relevant to the situation; consistent with all other similar situations across the nation; correct, not just similar, but the correct sign. The proper use of signs is necessary in order to gain the confidence of the road users. As the last line of safety, all road workers should wear high visibility safety vests at all times while on the road. Roadwork can be a tough, dirty, and demanding task. Under such conditions, authorities cannot and should not rely on the vigilance of the drivers and riders to protect their road workers. Road workers have a responsibility to look out for moving traffic. High visibility traffic safety vests increase worksite safety and road worker visibility. The work may stop when darkness falls, but the traffic keeps moving. Darkness makes all of the above factors more critical. When the wider environment cannot be seen and visibility is limited to areas illuminated by car or motorcycle headlights, a worksite will usually require added delineation of traffic paths. Pedestrians and bicyclists are legitimate road users. They should be considered at every worksite. Where pedestrians, including people with disabilities, have to move through or around the worksite, they should be provided with suitable temporary footpaths and crossings. Temporary footpaths should provide an all-weather path and an alignment suitable for all pedestrians. The zone concept is a method of breaking a work zone down into 5 separate zones according to the purpose each zone is to serve. For all roadwork sites, a traffic management plan is to be designed. To assist you in developing a TMP, you are encouraged to think of the roadwork site as comprised of 5 individual but interrelated zones. The 5 zones are: Advanced Warning Zone. This zone alerts drivers and riders of the work zone ahead. This is the section of road where the travelling public is informed about the approaching roadworks and what is expected ahead. Transition Guidance Taper Zone. The zone is used to guide drivers and riders into their correct path and at a correct, safe speed. This is the zone in which drivers and riders are redirected out of their normal path of travel. Work Zone, including the work area and its surrounding safety buffer zone. This zone is to guide drivers and riders safely through the work zone and to safeguard the workers. This is the area in which the works are physically being carried out and is set aside for workers, machinery, equipment and materials. Safety Buffer Zone. This zone is a part of the road included within the work zone. This is a longitudinal safety buffer immediately in advance of the work area that increases protection and safety for workers. termination zone. This zone is used to advise the drivers and riders of the end of the worksite. This is the area where traffic resumes normal operations after passing the work area and is informed of what is expected and allowed on the road beyond the worksite. This is the first zone that an approaching driver or rider encounters. Its length is dependent on approach speeds. It can be up to 300 meters long, and it should never be less than 100 meters long. It uses advanced warning signs and regulatory signs to warn users of the work zone ahead and to regulate their behavior. If drivers or riders are required to move from their lane to pass around a work zone, this is done in the transition guidance zone. This zone makes use of conspicuous and forgiving devices to create tapers to guide road users through, past, or around the work zone. Its length depends on the speed of traffic and the amount of lateral shift required. The work zone is the area where the roadworks are physically being carried out. It includes the work area and also the safety buffer zone if one is required. The location of the work zone and its proximity to the traffic lanes will dictate what type and length of transition guidance taper zone is required. A safety buffer zone immediately in advance of the work area is provided wherever traffic speeds in excess of 40 kilometers an hour are expected. It is a last effort to keep an errant vehicle from colliding with workers in the work zone, and it is primarily for worker safety. The safety buffer zone may need to extend back to a point which can be adequately seen by approaching traffic. The safety buffer should be kept clear of work vehicles, plant, stockpiled material, or other activity. This is the last zone that a driver or rider passes through. Guide signs and regulatory signs are used to indicate the end of the works. After this point, normal traffic conditions resume. A pair of speed restriction signs should be placed here to inform drivers and riders of their ability to return to normal highway speed beyond that point, if traffic conditions permit. The function of the advanced warning zone is to give advanced warning to drivers and riders of a roadwork site ahead. Drivers and riders must be able to see the warning signs, understand the conditions ahead, and know what is expected of them. Requirements for the display of advanced warning signs and devices vary according to factors, such as the speed of approaching traffic, the degree to which the hazard requires modification of speed or diversion of the travel path. There may also be a need for extra caution for other reasons, including sight obstruction caused by other traffic or the sight distance available to the hazard. One of the common failings in Indonesia is to place warning signs only a few meters in advance of the work zone. This is inadequate and unsafe. The advanced warning zone is sufficiently long that the warning signs used in this zone must be located well in advance of the work zone. Giving drivers and riders adequate time to recognize the work site and to take necessary action to slow down and to diverge if necessary. Remember, by setting out a good advanced warning zone, you will help to reduce the number of surprises at Indonesian roadwork sites. The transition guidance taper zone is the length of road where drivers are directed out of their normal path of travel. The amount of taper to be provided depends on the amount of the roadway that needs to be closed or partially closed. The taper that guides drivers and riders to the new travel path clear of the work area is provided fully within the transition guidance zone. There are two common types of tapers. One where the lane moves across without any merging of traffic, known as a diverge taper, and one where the line of traffic must merge with the traffic in the lane beside it, which is known as a merge taper. A merge taper requires a longer distance because drivers and riders are required to combine from two lanes of traffic into one lane of traffic. For safety, the only devices used to create tapers should be bright, conspicuous, reflective, and forgiving. This includes plastic cones, bollards, plastic delineators, and witches' hats. They are very visible, but if struck, they do not cause injury or damage. Never permit things such as rocks, branches, concrete barricades, planks of wood, or concrete curbstones to be used to create tapers. They are difficult to see, and if struck, they can cause serious injury. You should not use them anywhere on the roads. The work zone. This is the area where the roadwork is being done. It is where the workers are located and where most of the machinery is likely to be. Employers have an important obligation to provide a safe working environment that minimises the likelihood of injury to their workers anywhere, but especially within or adjacent to the work zone. One of the most useful ways to meet this obligation is to ensure that the advanced warning zone and the transition guidance zone are installed correctly and are clearly visible. These key actions will reduce the risk that a vehicle will inadvertently enter the work area. Depending on circumstances, you may decide to manage the traffic at your work zone in one of the following ways. Traffic passes through the work zone under closely controlled conditions. The passage of traffic through a work zone should only be permitted where both the traffic and the work can be effectively controlled. Traffic controllers or flagmen may be used as necessary to further slow down traffic on the approach to the work zone and to stop the traffic for short periods if required. Traffic controllers may also be required to control the movement of work vehicles within or across the traffic path. Traffic travels past the work zone by means of a defined path alongside, but clear of the work zone. This will be the normal method of traffic management at sites where complete exclusion of traffic from the work zone is achieved. Traffic is directed past the work zone and is not permitted into the work zone. The passageway for the traffic past the work zone must be clearly defined and delineated. High visibility plastic cones and delineators are best for this task. Traffic passes around the work zone by a detour, which may be via an existing road or a side track. When it is not practical or safe to allow traffic through or past the work area, it will be necessary to provide a detour using either existing roads or a specially constructed side track. The existing road option can include the other carriageway of a divided road. By constructing a crossover to the other carriageway and by permitting contraflow on that carriageway, a suitable detour may be possible. Detailed planning is usually required for these situations. In particular, remember to inform drivers and riders that they are no longer on a one-way carriageway. Consistently remind them that they are now sharing a carriageway with traffic from the other direction. Use two-way traffic warning signs at frequent intervals, and use cones and/or plastic delineators between the opposing streams to make this point. Closure of the road for short periods while the work is being completed. You may consider the full closure of a road for short periods if the through traffic will not be seriously affected by the delay and it is possible to reopen the road without prolonged operation. In making this decision, you will need to have a good idea of the traffic volumes and the likely queue lengths that will form. Posting signs that pre-alert drivers and riders to the possibility of such delays is always advisable. It gives them a chance to seek an alternate route if one exists. The full closure of very low volume roads may be an option if the work can be safely carried out while only allowing local vehicle access. Long-term work means that the traffic management devices at the roadwork site will be in place at night. At some work zones, the work will take place through the night. At most work zones, however, the work will stop at night and resume the next day. Where pedestrians, including people with disabilities, have to move through, past, or around the work zone, or to cross the road within the work zone, they should be provided with suitably constructed and protected temporary footpaths and crossing points. If the pedestrians have been directed onto the road, the pedestrians should be separated from vehicles by the use of plastic mesh fence on low-speed roads, or where the roadwork speed limit has been reduced to below 60 km an hour. In a high-speed environment, concrete barriers should be used to separate the pedestrians from the traffic. The concrete barriers must be securely joined to create a strong and continuous barrier. In short, never forget that pedestrians will be walking through or past your work zone, and provide safely for them. It is important to advise the travelling public that they have passed the end of the work zone. It is also important to guide and control them back into their normal driving or riding conditions. The termination zone is the area which traffic resumes normal operation after passing the work zone. Typical signs used in this zone will include end roadwork, end detour, and end roadwork speed limit, as applicable. If traffic has been diverted either via tapers or a sidetrack past the work zone, they will be diverted back to their correct travel path within the termination zone. When designing your traffic management plan, it is important to create a termination zone that is neither too long, as drivers and riders will ignore it, or too short, as drivers and riders will not be far enough beyond the work zone for suitable traffic control and safety. One point to keep in mind when designing your TMP is that the termination zone for one direction usually ends at the same point that the advanced warning zone starts for the other direction. This gives you the opportunity to place signs on the back of the signs for the other direction. It is often said that a road safety engineer should warn, inform, guide, control, forgive. The same applies in roadwork zones. Drivers and riders need suitable warning, appropriate information, clear guidance, suitable control, and finally forgiveness if they make a mistake. The function of the signs and devices used for traffic control at a roadwork zone is specifically to give warning, guidance, and instruction to the road users about the roadwork ahead. Advise of the presence of workers and equipment on or near the road ahead. Ensure speed control is required for safety. Advise the road users of the correct path to use. Prohibit road users access to the work zone, and thereby assist the safety of the workers. Advise the road users that they have reached the end of the roadwork zone. Indonesia has agreed formats, fonts, shapes and colours for its road signs. You should comply with these requirements on all your projects. Drivers and riders react more quickly and more correctly when they see standard signs and devices. It reduces the potential for misunderstanding. Supports for roadwork signs are required to suit a variety of maintenance and construction situations. Signs and supports used for short-term operations and situations where signs are required to be moved on a regular basis should be portable and easy to erect. The mounting for the sign should be quick and easy to install, be secure for the sign attachment, be stable in windy conditions and from the effect of moving traffic, provide for installation on all types of road and shoulder surfaces, be easily handled, transported and stored, not be a hazard to road users if struck in their normal upright position or after being knocked over. It is usual to separate signs by 2 seconds of travel distance. That means, if the typical operating speed is 60 kilometers an hour, or 18 meters a second, 2 signs should be at least 36 meters apart. In some instances, however, 2 signs may be displayed together at the one position. For example, a worker sign and a speed restriction sign may be displayed on the same mounting, either side by side or one above the other. Multi-message signs are a good alternative to standalone signs. They make the task of signing easier and cheaper due to the lightweight, compact sign materials. A multi-message sign is a frame into which a combination of lightweight signs can be slid according to the needs of the worksite. The use of multi-message signs should comply with the following requirements. Individual message plates should comply with the requirements for the related standalone sign. When used, regulatory speed limit plates should be placed in the top position of the multi-message frame, on the side closest to the traffic. When used on high-speed roads, multi-message sign assemblies should be duplicated on both sides of the roadway. The frame for multi-message signs is made of lightweight metal and is designed to stand securely without support. The frame should be capable of holding back-to-back message plates. This allows the frame to serve 2 directions if necessary. The sizes of symbols and words on message plates should generally accord with their standalone signs. However, it is acceptable for the size of the legend to be reduced slightly if it is necessary to fit into the relevant plate size. There are 2 common errors with signage at roadwork sites in Indonesia. Many times there are no signs or not enough signs used. At other times, there are enough signs used, but they are incorrect signs for the situation, and they are often in poor condition. Too often in Indonesia, old and ineffective signs are used at work sites. With some attention to just a few basic details, you can put your signs and devices to much greater effect at your roadworks. Each sign and device used at your worksite should be inspected for the following issues at the commencement of the roadworks. Signs and devices that are bent, broken, or show major surface damage should not be used. Signs and devices should be free from accumulated dirt, road grime, or other contamination. Wash them as necessary. Fluorescent signs that have become colour faded to a point where they have lost their daylight impact should be replaced. Signs that are needed to be effective at night should be checked for retroreflectivity. Viewing the signs by vehicle headlight in dark conditions can best check nighttime effectiveness. Before work commences, the signs and devices should be set out in accordance with the approved traffic management plan and in the following sequence. Firstly, all advanced warning and regulatory signs, starting with the signs the greatest distance away from the work zone and working inwards towards the work zone. Secondly, all signs in advance of the taper or the start of the work area. Thirdly, all delineating devices required to form the taper, including, if required, illuminated flashing arrow signs at the end of the taper. Then, the delineation of the worksite. Finally, any other required warning or regulatory signs, including termination and end of temporary speed zone signs, should be put in place. Removing or retrieving of the signs and devices at the conclusion of the work should be done in the reverse order, using the same work method as for setting out. Signs must be able to be seen by all drivers and riders. Therefore, it is necessary that all signs face towards approaching traffic, approximately at right angles to the line of sight of the driver. All the signs and devices used at your worksite should be positioned and erected so that they are properly displayed and securely mounted. They are within the line of sight of the approaching road users. They are not, and cannot be, obscured from view by things such as vegetation, warungs, or parked vehicles. They do not obscure other devices from the line of sight of the approaching road users. They do not become a possible hazard to workers, pedestrians, or vehicles. They do not direct traffic into an unsafe path. They do not restrict sight distance for drivers and riders entering from side roads or private driveways. At the worksite, when all of the signs and devices have been erected and the condition of the signs and devices has been checked on site, one further inspection is needed to ensure the intended message is being properly conveyed to the road users. This inspection should be carried out from within the normal traffic stream at normal traffic speed. Each sign and device is observed to see that it is fulfilling its intended use. You should also undertake a nighttime inspection to ensure the signs and devices are functioning correctly after dark. Similar inspections should be carried out after any major change is made to the traffic management plan. As soon as the roadwork is completed, the signs and devices should be removed or concealed from view. Drivers and riders are expected to comply with the signs and devices you place at a worksite. All your effort should go towards gaining driver and rider compliance with your traffic management work. It therefore follows that unnecessary signs and devices should not be visible to drivers and riders, as these will contradict the positive message you're attempting to convey. A vehicle travelling at high speed takes much longer to stop than the same vehicle travelling at low speed. This may result in more crashes, and it will almost certainly result in more severe consequences when the crash does occur. Managing speed is an important task on all roads for engineers and police in Indonesia. It takes on added importance at roadwork sites, where conditions may change often and where workers are sometimes close to traffic. Roadwork zones are typically locations where unexpected things can happen more often than on other parts of the road network. Roadwork zones are therefore locations where all the traffic should travel slowly. You have an important role to play in working with local traffic police to ensure that speeds through work zones are managed for safety. Engineers have only one tool available to them: speed restriction zones. These are zones that start and end with speed restriction signs. After the traffic has passed the worksite, It is vital that the roadwork site's speed limit ends, and the drivers and riders are returned to the existing speed limit. This is done by posting the existing limit restriction in the termination zone. When determining the speed limit to be adopted throughout a roadwork site, the potential hazards that you need to consider include clearance between the traffic lanes and the work area, traffic volume and vehicle composition, for example, the number of heavy vehicles, type of work, either manual, heavy machinery or trenching, duration of work, either long-term, short-term, or mobile. Time of work, for example, night works. The braking distance of a car travelling at a particular speed. You should install a reduced roadwork speed limit when one or more of the following conditions applies at your worksite. The safety of workers may be compromised by the close proximity to the traffic. Moving roadwork machinery or equipment will be required to share the road with the road users throughout the roadwork site. Loose material or stones are likely to be present on the road surface. The standard of vertical or horizontal road geometry, for example, inadequate sight distance, at the approach to or within a work site will be reduced below that of the adjacent sections of the road. The unobstructed clear width of the roadway will be significantly reduced. The safety of road users travelling through the worksite at the permanent speed limit will in some other way be compromised. In particular, the safety of pedestrians, bicyclists, and people with disabilities will be compromised. Roadwork speed limits should be removed when there is no longer a need for the speed of the traffic to be restricted for the roadworks. Roadwork speed limits should only apply when workers, roadwork, machinery and equipment, or traffic controllers are present on the worksite. At other times, the roadwork speed restriction signs should be removed or covered up. Special provision should be made if you expect pedestrians and bicyclists to pass through, past, or around the roadwork site you are to manage. The path provided for them should be located as far as is reasonably practicable from the roadway, be smooth and free from obstructions, be of adequate width, be clearly signed and delineated. It should be constructed to prevent pedestrians from walking through the roadwork area and provide clear guidance where the path changes direction. Where works may adversely affect access to a bus stop or a train station, thought needs to be given to the location and method of providing alternative access for the duration of the works. This will require consultation with the relevant bus or train operator. If your roadwork is likely to obstruct access to nearby businesses, thought needs to be given to enabling access for pedestrians and bicyclists. A road safety barrier system is designed to provide a physical barrier between the travelled way and the work area. If you decide to use a safety barrier at your worksite, it must be designed and installed so that it will inhibit penetration by an out-of-control vehicle, and it will also redirect the impacting vehicle. A safety barrier provides general protection for road workers from passing traffic. Safety barriers may be required where any of the following occur. There is inadequate safe clearance between workers and equipment and moving traffic. There is potential for traffic conflicts, such as head-on collisions. There are hazardous objects or excavations near traffic. There is inadequate safe clearance between the temporary footpaths or bicycle paths and moving traffic. Any safety barrier used at a roadwork site should satisfy international testing standards. You should therefore ensure that any safety barrier used at your site is of a type that has been certified and tested. If safety barriers are to be used at your roadwork site, a safe system of work should be developed. This should take into consideration the type, shape, protection, performance, and test characteristics of the safety barrier as stated by the manufacturer, the speed of traffic travelling through the worksite, the clearance between the traffic and work area, safety barriers are used to prevent vehicles from entering the work area. But barriers themselves are roadside hazards, and it is important to try and install them in a way that reduces the possibility of them being hit by vehicles that may stray just a small amount from the travel path. The minimum length of safety barrier to be used at roadworks is 30 metres, plus suitable end terminals. Usually longer lengths are needed to fully shield the work area. The ends of a safety barrier represent a safety risk to road users. Take special care to ensure that safe terminals are fitted to the temporary safety barriers at your work area. Safe terminals may include water-filled barriers or portable steel barriers that are flared away from the road and end outside the clear zone. An alternative, but more expensive option, is to use crash cushions on the end of the barrier. As well, install a non-rigid, retro-reflective hazard marker on the terminal to make it more visible to approaching drivers and riders at night. When safety barriers are in place, your workers should not be allowed to work behind the safety barriers within the no-go zone. The no-go zone is necessary because most temporary crash barriers will deflect when struck by an errant vehicle. In some situations, the barrier will deflect up to several meters, depending on the size of the impacting vehicle, its speed, and its angle of impact. If a worker is within the no-go zone at the time of the impact, they risk serious injury from the errant vehicle and/or the barrier. The minimum width for the no-go zone should be the maximum deflection specified by the manufacturer for the safety barrier. Where safety barriers are used on high-speed roads, debris protection screens may be considered to protect workers from debris falling from passing vehicles. These screens also have the added advantage of protecting motorists and motorcyclists from work activities. Where you propose to erect a screen, consider the following. The effect of the screen on the stopping sight distance along the road. For example, roads with small radius curves. The stability of a screen and safety barrier under all conditions at a work site. For example, wind load, including passing vehicle wind load. The effect of the height of the screen on the stability of the safety barrier. Crash testing evidence, clearly documented historical information or engineering analysis to show that this is acceptable. The need for emergency accesses, such as in the form of an access gate or door in the screen. The effect of the screen on the sight distance of drivers of construction vehicles when entering the traffic stream from the worksite. One of the activities that has additional risk at a worksite is moving barriers into place. For safety at this time, the following general principles should be followed when moving safety barriers around a worksite. The work should be carried out during daylight hours where possible. Ensure that you have appropriate speed limits in place at your worksite. Give attention to the direction of erection and removal of safety barriers. That is, generally facing oncoming traffic, with terminal crash attenuators installed first and removed last. Consideration should be given to using a shadow vehicle with an impact attenuator on roads with high speed and/or high volume traffic. Always comply with the manufacturer's specifications for moving or lifting the safety barrier. Portable traffic signals are an expensive but effective form of traffic control that can assist you in managing traffic safely at short-term roadwork sites. You should install a traffic signals ahead warning sign on the approach to any portable traffic signals. The stop here on red signal sign is a useful sign that can be used in conjunction with the portable traffic signals to indicate where traffic must stop, even if a stop line is provided. A truck or trailer-mounted attenuator is a crash cushion located on the back of a truck. Truck or trailer-mounted attenuators, or TMAs, provide physical protection for roadwork sites where the provision of safety barriers or road closures is not practicable. TMAs are particularly applicable to short-term and mobile roadwork sites where workers are on the roadway or shoulder. An electronic variable message sign, or VMS, is a traffic control device which can be programmed to display a message to road users. An electronic VMS can comprise either of the following. A mobile VMS may be trailer-mounted or vehicle-mounted and can be readily moved to a location as required. This allows the information to be given at the point of maximum impact. Fixed VMS. This is erected beside or above generally high-speed, high-volume, multi-lane roads for traffic control purposes. Although these are mainly used for traffic control or to alert drivers to congestion ahead, they may also be used as warning devices for works along the road. A VMS may be used to provide added advanced warning to road users on high-speed and/or high-volume roads where roadwork activities may cause delays, or may require stopping, slowing, merging, or other maneuvers that need a specific reaction. There are two things that a mobile VMS should not be used for: replacing static signs at a worksite. Even with a mobile VMS, it is still a requirement to display all the necessary signs for the worksite. Advising road users of something they already know. This may sound obvious, but drivers and riders do not need to have their concentration taken by unnecessary messages. In order to ensure that the message is readable and understandable, and to maximize road safety, messages on a VMS should be kept to a maximum of 2 screens in all speed zones. This enables road users to read and understand the entire message. Single-screen messages should be displayed continuously. Do not flash the message or cause it to change in any way. VMS messages should answer the questions of what, where, and when in a short and concise manner. They should only be displayed when either a response is needed or to inform road users of future events. As a minimum, road users need to know what they should do and why they should do it. The placement of the VMS is important to ensure that the sign is visible to the road user and that it provides ample time for them to take any necessary action. It is vital that the VMS be visible to all approaching drivers and riders so that it may be read, understood, and acted upon. All road workers who are working on or adjacent to your roadwork site should be required to wear high visibility clothing. High visibility safety vests are designed to make workers more conspicuous and to warn road users of their presence. If you're a traffic controller, you must observe the following instructions. You must wear the high visibility clothing provided. You will normally be provided with a day-night vest, overall or jacket that is fluorescent for daytime visibility and with retro-reflective strips for night work. You are responsible for setting up the Prepare to Stop sign at the beginning of the shift and taking it away at the end. If you take over traffic control part way through a shift, you must check that this sign is in the correct place. Try to stand where you can see both the end of the work area nearest to you and also the controller at the other end. You must also be able to see approaching vehicles at least 1.5 times the speed limit in meters. Stand facing the traffic, but just outside the path of vehicles. You must make sure you do not obstruct a driver's view of other signs and devices, and that you are not yourself partially hidden by one of these. Work out what you would do if a vehicle is heading towards you and appears not to be stopping. Have an escape path ready. If you are working a single lane section with another controller, you will have the responsibility for changing traffic direction if you are next to stop traffic. Once traffic is stopped, change your position if necessary, so that you are clearly visible to further traffic as it arrives. Stay at the head of the traffic queue and stand by yourself. The following case studies from roadwork sites around Indonesia offer an opportunity to examine some road safety issues from real roadwork sites. What has been done, what has not been done, and what the safety consequences may be. In looking at these case studies as a group, some common themes begin to clearly emerge. They include the use of the zone concept. The zone concept is not commonly used except on expressways. Zones should be used at roadworks on all road types. Zones do not reflect driver operating speeds. When used, the zones are too short. Make sure you look carefully at the operating speed and create zones accordingly. Inconsistent speed management. Speed management is inconsistent at work sites. There is a need to place clear and conspicuous speed restriction signs in the advanced warning zone and to repeat these as necessary. New roads to old roads. Vehicle speeds are higher on new sections of road. Too often there are surprises for drivers and riders when they reach the end of the new section. as there is insufficient warning of the old road ahead. Inconsistent delineation. Delineation is inconsistent and unclear. Some sites use cones and bollards, but usually not enough. Hazards left in the clear zone. Many roadside hazards, curb blocks, materials, rocks, excavations, are left in the clear zone along the work sites. These are hazardous, especially for motorcyclists. Unclear road surfaces. Too much sand or gravel or mud is left on road pavements. It is a serious sliding hazard for motorcyclists. About half of workers wear safety vests. All workers should be given a safety vest and be required to wear it at all times. This is a cheap and effective form of worker protection. It is important to think about these common safety concerns. Plan and work wisely to make sure you do not also create the same errors. Engineers have a lot to offer in improving road safety at work sites.